Hey, Tony.
Yeah, I'm here in Tucson.
Is that where we are?
Yeah, I flew in here because I'm doing a lecture for the Tucson Art Museum at this place called Rocky Mountain Oyster Club or something.
Close to that, yeah. The Rocky Mountain.
Yeah,
Oyster
okay,
Club.
so right,
Mountain Oyster Club. Really.
I knew. I threw that in as a little joke because I was like, they told me, and I was like, what? What's that about?
Yeah, you know what those are, by the way?
I do.
Okay.
I do. You can explain, but let somebody Google it. And try to find out.
And they're tasty.
Yeah, I've never had it.
You will.
It's kind of like one of those things that are on my wish list or my menu.
They're very tasty.
Yeah, I eat a lot of stuff.
I'm coming to that show, by the way. I'm coming to the lecture.
Oh, good. Well,
paying to hear you speak, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really worth money, but I did put together some visuals.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'll have some dialogue about sort of where I came from and the work that I've been engaged in. So that's what brought me to Tucson. But I was in LA. No, I came to see you in your beautiful gallery. Wow, you got pretty amazing things. and you know, I don't think the camera can see behind you, but I'm looking at maybe 8 really, really wonderful drawings by T.C. Cannon, who of course was very influential in me when I first came to the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. And I knew him. So, and I saw the show actually of contemporary Indian artists, and it was a whole pantheon of everybody. So Fritz Sholder was in that show.
Yeah, when was that?
It had to have been, because I went to...
go ahead.
I went to IA in 1984.
I'm going to stop you because you know what? I want to go back to where you came from because we're going to get there. I want to pull you back to growing up in Gallup, right? That's where you grew up, right?
Sure, Gallup, New Mexico.
Yeah, and Route
66.
Yeah, Route 66. And you were there. Did you do the whole grade school, junior high, high school, the whole thing there?
Yeah.
What the hell was that like?
Well, it's a small town.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I came from a small town.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of freedom to go out and like hike in the hills and explore and build clubhouses and play in the rivers and ditches. I played on the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Yeah.
So it's a tough town,
when people tell me like, "Oh, why don't you go run out and play in the tracks?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't mind that."
So you squish pennies and the likes on the tracks?
Actually, everything. We used to put bottles. We used to put pennies. Just about anything you could find.
Yeah.
So when the trains came by, and then we would also jump on the trains while they were moving really slow. And but they started building up momentum and speed. Of course, we didn't want to stay on them. But those are right across the street. I lived in a place called Viro Circle. My parents moved there probably in the 50s, late 50s. Mm-hmm. They met after the war. My father came back from the war, and
he was a code talker, right?
He was a code. Yeah, my father was in World War II. First, we'll backtrack for him. He was at Santa Fe Indian School.
Dorothy Dunn,
and
right?
lot of he studied under Dorothy Dunn, and he has the dust jacket of her book, which I guess was published probably in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a werewolf on it. It's a great painting. I think it's in the collection of the Herd. And
tell everybody his name, so that in case
Narcisco Abeyta, but he painted under the name of So Deh, which is phonetically spelled as So Deh or So Deh.
By the way, anybody out there listening who has a So Deh,
call me.
Call Tony.
I'm easy.
First call me, and then I'll make a little percent.
He tacks on the money and the price on it. If you want to do that, that doesn't seem like.
All right, just call Tony directly. He is the source.
Come on, you don't want to go to him. Or anybody else, Al Anthony.
Nobody.
They're all good people and they're friends of mine. Okay, so back to the narrative that after the war he came back. He worked as a code talker, and then he received shell shock. So he came back from the war. He had a lot of, I guess, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure he
did. He would. I mean, I grew up when he would have nightmares, and so he'd scream in the middle of the night, and we'd be all terrified because he would have these like screaming bouts with whatever it was and break things. And so it was just one of those things that later on, and I got used to it. It was kind of normal.
Did he talk about the war at all, or what he did?
Yeah, but I was never listened to it. So anytime he could get an audience, he would talk about the war, and he had stories. And there's some texts that he's been interviewed and has been written about those experiences. And later on, of course, after my dad was gone, I started reading more about it because it became interesting. When you're a kid, you're just like, either I need some money or can I borrow the car keys
or both.
Yeah. all of those things. So then he met my mom at UNM. They moved to Gallup,
She was
New
a
Mexico.
ceramist, right?
Yeah, she did. She was, I think it's unfair to call her a crafts person, but she engaged in not only digging her own clay, she would read books. She was really well read. She was really an anthropologist of sorts. So she would find pottery and then like a piece of pottery, and then she would look at the paint and she would determine it was made from bee weed, and she would try to boil down these bee weeds and she would find slips and she would put them on there. She could tell you where to find certain clays, how to get a paint that looked like a glaze that would be like a Rio Grande ware.
Wow.
She was really good at that. And then she got into wool, and she worked with a woman whose name was Noelle Bennett, who wrote a couple of books on weaving.
Yeah, she did really nice books. And what was your mom's heritage?
Oh, my mom was Anglo-Italian. She was from Philadelphia. She came to New Mexico, I think in the 30s when she was a girl. And
was she a Quaker too? Is that right?
My mom. I was actually raised Quaker,
I'm doing
which
my
is
research.
really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how people will often roll their eyes at me and say like, you're not Quaker, Tony. And I'm like, yeah. And it was, I never played with guns as a kid. Was forbidden from doing that. And I used to go to meetings at the Olive Rush house underneath that tree in the back. There used to be meetings on Sundays, and they would just sit there in complete silence like this.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then somebody would say something really profound. They would say something like, the birds are often foraging for things. And as I watch them outside my window, I think that God provides for all of us in the same way. But we have to do a little bit on our own to dig around and find where the pinons might have dropped.
And how was that, so your dad's Navajo, your mom's Anglo-Quaker. How is that interaction of the different religions? Was that a problem for you? Because Gallup is like it's kind of a tough town, right?
If you look at Quakerism, for example, it actually is not too far off from ritual Native American
there's a thread,
ideology.
Right? Yeah.
Because it doesn't have, there's not necessarily a monotheistic approach to what Quakers believe, but they believe that you pray in silence. You are your own church. You pray in congregation, and your prayers are heard because you're a community or a group. And it's also tied directly to lifestyle, humility, and also, kindness, doing good things. So those aren't in conflict with Native American ideas. My dad was very traditionally raised on the reservation. And he was from Cañoncito, or was Tuajale, which is right outside of Albuquerque. It's a little bit west of. So he was, barefoot, running around on red rocks, herding sheep, and
traditional Navajo.
Yeah, real traditional Navajo. And he used to go to Albuquerque Indian School, and they used to come back on the weekends, so they would go back and forth. Like they could make that.
Did he have a good experience at Indian school or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's different variations of all stories,
right?
Whether it's war, some people will come back really empowered,
right?
They'll have a story to tell about, how the patriotism and nationalism, and some people came back extremely broken.
Yes.
And the same thing with boarding schools, right? So you're in boarding school, and some people said, you can't practice your ceremonies, you can't speak your native tongue,
right?
We're going to cut your hair.
You may get the yellow soap in your mouth if you're not careful.
Yeah, what are you doing with those, mutton ribs in your back pocket? Throw those away. You got to go eat this. And so there were definitely, it was a restrictive and often punitive existence that was tied to school and learning and assimilation. But there was also a reprieve in that. Like for Santa Fe Indian School, at the time, had an arts department under, who's Dorothy Dunn, right? So she was giving students paper and paint and directing them, do whatever you want, but, paint this. She had some dictation, but as we can see the results of the paintings, they were amazing. I mean, she helped keep people on track in terms of, focusing in craftsmanship and, paint your
And that's where your dad went to school after the war?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This would be before.
It was before the war.
He went there like at 15 or 16.
Oh, wow.
And the story is, as he told, was that he, his best friend, who was a guy named Tony Jose Chavez, went to Santa Fe Indian School. And he didn't want to be left on the reservation. He didn't want to stay. And it was winter. And so there wasn't a lot happening. So he snuck on the wagon that picked up a bunch of the students to go. And he hid under a blanket. And when they got there, they're like, who's this kid? And he was too young to go to school there, but they let him stay anyway.
Wow.
So when he came back the next summer or the next spring, right? That his family were in tears. They were like, we thought you had died. You were eaten by coyotes or you had frozen.
Oh, wow.
And
they didn't know.
Yeah, and he'd grown like a little sprout.
Was that like the 30s time frame? Because he was born in 1918, your dad, right?
Yeah. So this would have been 1936, 37.
Yeah.
Probably a little before then, right?
Yeah.
Because when he was working, and I'm judging this all by, paintings that he signed and dated. So the best work, at his prowess, his real fine lines and the great colorations and the influence he was getting from Gerald Naylor and he was getting from Hauser, who he used to box with. This is a really big, long story.
That's okay. We got lots of time.
Okay. Yeah. So there's all of this really amazing connections between people who were brought together by Santa Fe Indian School and that later continued with the Institute of American Indian Arts, right? So
where you ultimately went to school.
Where I went to school too. So
we're not there yet.
That institution, good or bad, had it's good. It's all good. Has brought in all of this intertribal interaction with people and influences from Oklahoma, from Northwest Coast, all over the country, and made this really amazing, art.
Yeah,
American Indian art movement. Yeah, whether it's traditional or contemporary.
So when you're growing up in Gallup, you got what, 6 siblings?
Yeah.
And where did you fall in that line of those?
I was the only boy. I mean, I have a half brother. He's a great guy, really creative, and he does ceramics and things. And he was teaching, and he could do woodwork. He could do a lot of stuff. He was always. My mom just loved the way he could fix things.
And he's older. Your half brother's older.
Yeah. He's I don't remember how many years older than me.
So, but where do you fall in all with this?
Baby of the family.
It makes sense. So, I got it now.
And the only boy. That's why I mentioned the brother, because I'm like the only boy.
So you have 6 sisters.
Yeah, I never did dishes. I just didn't have to do it. Like
and I'm sure you still don't.
Out the back door, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I know one of your sisters was a sculptor, ceramicist, the one that
all my sisters, Patricia, and brother and everything were all artists. They were all really artists. Creative. I won't go into too much detail because a lot of my family's gone, and without getting into all of that, I'm gonna skirt all of it because I love them and I miss them and they're incredibly important to me. But I have less family than I did when I was a kid.
Got it.
And so the impact that they had on me was pretty immense, though. The influence that they directed me and said it's okay to be an artist. Yeah. They gave me permission in a world that said art wasn't really a responsible job, like auto mechanics or working at for the park department or anything else.
Government job.
Government jobs were employing people, and we grew up poor. I mean, I can't describe it as anything else. Like we didn't really have any money with the exception of maybe, my father painted on the weekends, and when he knew somebody was coming through.
Your dad, wasn't he a silversmith too?
Yeah, he was a silversmith, but early on. That was I don't really know because he had silversmithing tools throughout his life. He had them, and he could do some things, but I think he did that after the war. I know of one concho belt he made, but he pretty much laid those tools down and stuck with painting.
And what did he think when you said, I'm going to become an artist?
He was the one who told me I should be an auto mechanic.
Yeah.
Because our car was always breaking down, right? and because the car was always busted and wouldn't work. And he was always paying out money to get this car fixed.
Right.
And we basically wanted to run it off a cliff because he would juice those cars until like they couldn't run anymore. Right. And so he wanted to be an auto mechanic, right? Yeah. Because there was no money in art. People would come in the weekend and they would buy a painting from him. So he knew Jim Bilak's coming through, or one of the really early seminal painting collectors would be coming through, and he would paint a painting. So when they showed up on Saturday morning, there would be like this painting still smelling like casein, right? And and if we sold the painting, we'd go cash the check, with
money.
And once in a while we could have like a steak. We go out for steaks, like his family, but most of the time we ate at home and never went out. We didn't travel so much. So I didn't know we were that poor until later.
Right.
Then
looking back is always.
I look back and then I think, oh, look at all the things that we used to collect aluminum cans. That was fun. Yeah. I didn't have any real shame about that at all.
I did it in college.
Yeah. So there you are. It was a really fun tree building, running around, burnt suntan, shoeless, hanging out in parks,
the house
swimming
still there?
In water holes, all of that. That was, bringing back to your question about what's it like to be in a hometown. It's fantastic because you can be poor and everyone else is poor, and you can be, and it's like, it was a really great place, culturally rich with, people came in from Zuni, people came in from Hopi, all over the reservations, and everybody came in on Saturday. So Saturday, even to this date, is my favorite day of all. Like, I love Saturdays because there's like things going on, and I
remember that.
Yeah, like don't muck with my Saturday. Like,
that's funny.
I actually had this girlfriend and she was giving me grief on a Saturday, and I was like, you know what? This isn't going to work. I mean, Saturday's my most favorite day. You can't ruin my Saturday. Because, well, no, it's like any other day. And I'm like, this is not going to work out.
And do you think that's also because the money came in, because a painting would get sold too, and there was more treats and things to be able to.
Yeah, because it was payday, right? Because everybody's getting paid, and then they have flea markets, and people are selling peaky bread, and they're selling mutton stew and sandwiches and jewelry and everything, and people are getting new tires, and there's parades down on town, and there's movies, matinees, and we don't have to go to school.
Yeah, no school.
So, yeah.
And were you good at school?
No, terrible student.
But how about the art part?
I always did okay. I drew, I made things, I built stuff. I played with clay. Nothing ever got fired, so it all melted back into the earth. But I will say that when I didn't know what else to do with my life, that's when I made the decision to go to art school, and my sisters all were supportive. Like, you can do it. Yeah. You should go to art school. Yeah. I'll help you. I'll make a phone call. We'll get you into, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. We should go to IIA. Yeah. It's a good school.
In Santa Fe. Yeah.
In Santa Fe. And I said, I can't get in there. I have really like D minuses. I shouldn't even be saying this to people.
No, that's okay. Most of the artists I interview did not do well in school as far as grades, but they all excelled in creativity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I taught at UC Berkeley, NYU graduate. I mean, I'm not like incapable of making decent grades or, dealing with academics, but I look back on high school and I barely made it through it. I was not focused. Let's say I wasn't.
When you
focused.
Go back, have you gone back to any of the reunions?
Yeah, I do.
And do they?
They're just such beautiful people. Like I see classmates and they're still really, like, sometimes their memories are so tied in with like a particular period of time, like 1983, right?
Right, when you were there.
And so they remember all this stuff about me, and I'm like, I don't want to remember all that stuff.
Did any of those know that you were going to become an artist, you think?
No, because I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know. You didn't know until you went to Santa Fe?
No, I don't think. We all went to go do different things. And some people still live in my hometown, but I think a lot of people left and went to different places, go, get out of that, small town groove and search out. I mean, I almost moved back to my hometown, but I could only handle it for about a week. So there I would be.
Yeah, I grew up in the same small town you did, almost the same size, but on the other side of the state.
Yeah.
In Portales. You were in Gallup and I was in Portales. Similar, I understand.
Yeah. I mean, there's some amazing things because it was also the epicenter of like jewelry, right? American Indian jewelry. So I knew a lot about, lapidary and stonework and all of these things. And all the traders, Toby Turpin's was friends with my mom, and Richardson's, had these vaults, and I'd go into the back vaults and I could see just all of this like squash blossoms,
right?
650 concho belts, and strands of coral. Back in those days, it wasn't like the stuff that you see now, right? That gets pawned. It was all the stuff that traders wanted people to pawn. Like, are you going to pawn this first phase concho belt? And they're like, well, we'll be back for it. And they hoped that they wouldn't, because they would know that this was like, the last leg of really the great stuff. And that was all then and there. So I grew up around a lot of creativity, art. There were people who were painting. There was a gallery there called Kiva Gallery.
Yeah,
right?
Kiva. That's right.
So that was Nello Guadagnoli, Italian-American, one of the really early supporters of Harrison Begay and my father, and just about anyone who picked up a paintbrush, and he would give them paper and supplies. And I kind of have to give him a shout out, because he was the beginning of like an early form of an art gallery. He sold to all the big major dealers and traders, and he also gave supplies to people when they didn't have it. So he really helped the industry. He was really a pioneer in making the work available and supporting the artists. So he paid people in cash. He was a good guy.
Did you sell him any art? Did you do anything?
He bought a couple paintings for me later on, like when I was an art student. Yeah. And you think you're more expensive than your dad, right? And I'm like, I don't mean to be like that. I guess you're not paying my dad enough money.
Yeah, there you go.
you've been shipping him all these years. But I don't mean that. He was a good guy. And he had this little gallery, and in there would be pretty amazing things. Andrew Sinigin, Quincy Tahoma. He would have some painters from Oklahoma too. People would come through, so it wasn't just the regional people. He had other artists. Hopi, he had a lot of Hopi artists too. Pottery and jewelry too.
So when you left Gallup, that was to go to Santa Fe. That was kind of your first time really away from Gallup?
Yeah.
So that was like, because you're going to the big city, right? I mean, in a weird way.
Yeah, it wasn't that big. It's kind of it's a lot bigger now, but back then it was a manageable. Yes, it was a town. Santa Fe was a town.
35,000 probably back then.
Yeah, right.
And so, what was that like going into Santa Fe?
I think
because you're young, right? What are you, 18, 19?
Not even that. I think really? I went to art school at 17. And I was roommates with my first roommate was from Berkeley, California. It was Diego Romero.
Oh yeah,
I walked in and he claimed this bed right by the door, and I wanted that. And I was like, screw this. I took his bag and I threw it and put it on the other bed. Walked down. The guy, he came back in. He goes, somebody moved my bag off the bed. And I'm like, I moved that bag off that bed. He said, I hope we're not going to have problems here because I'm here. I'm from California. And I'm just, I want to be your friend, but we should make some rules. And I'm like, all right. Anyway, he's this hotshot ceramic artist from Cochiti.
Yeah, he's really, fantastic.
He's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art now. I'm so proud.
Well, you're in the Smithsonian, right?
Yeah, I got that going on.
Yeah, so I mean, it goes both ways, right?
Geez, this is all really good. He's married to a really hotshot, wonderful photographer now. And so our circle of people have now gotten the prowess and attention of most major museums. And I knew them all when I used to drink with them, get in fights and, Vangelos and, just crazy fun stuff. And so this community of people, it would be more interesting for people in the future to look and say like, wow, how did you meet this person and that person? And, you know.
Now, who were your teachers there at that time? Anybody
at the
know?
time, well, you know, my favorite teacher really was Otellie Loloma. I loved Otellie because she was Charles's Hopi wife, and she just was really a really contemporary thinking individual with traditional undertones. She taught painting and she taught ceramics, and then she taught traditional dance. So she did all three of those things at the Institute. And so she was Diego's teacher for ceramics. So he learned a lot from her. And about, you know, firing things traditionally. And then she was teaching me painting. And she went to Black Mountain College, I think.
Yeah, just like Albers
yeah, right. Yeah. And so she had this really progressive edge to her, you know, about design. She would say, your colors are too loud. You need to tone it down. Make sure, but not too bright, but not too you know, subtle either. So she would. I think most of my palette I got from Otellie. She got me to see things through, you know, an eye that was soft spoken, and so the colors themselves were really derived from nature.
And were you did you look at yourself as that's where I'm going to go painting, or were you dabbling in everything at that point, ceramics and other things too, because your mom liked that?
Yeah, man, I tried to run from this painting career at least 3 or 4 times throughout it. And in the beginning, this sounds really silly, but I didn't think you could really make a living at art. And people talked about this thing, like, I don't know, like design and advertising or something. So I thought maybe I could do posters or billboards and draw them out. I mean, I didn't even know what it meant, but I just thought that's what you had to do to make art work.
Right, to make money.
So I'm going to get back to the real meat and the potatoes of it. Like, I got there to IA, and there was this big, huge exhibition at the Fine Arts Museum. And every interview, I seem to mention the same very seminal exhibition, which was of contemporary people. Fritz Sholder was in that show, Delmar Boney, T.C. Cannon, Harry Fonseca, all the key protagonists of contemporary, influenced by pop art at the time, very progressive, 60s, 70s. David Bradley, I think, was in there. And I looked at the art and I was like, whoa, I want to be one of these guys.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to be one of these guys who got great big giant paintings. They're bright colors. You know, Fonseca was painting with glitter.
Yeah.
Shoulder was dripping and making mess on there, and they were just splattered. And I'm like, who does that? Like, clean it up. Like, I didn't get it at the time, but then I didn't know that I was like right there at that waking moment where contemporary American Indian art had really found purchase in, like, you know, the mainstream eyes.
What year would have that been? Do you remember?
I think it had to be 84. It was the first summer I was there.
Oh, wow.
And that's what changed my ideas. Like, then I knew what I wanted to be, right? Maybe Hauser was in that, but I don't even think Hauser was in there. But was
that like an epiphany moment? You walk in and you go,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
Hell yeah. I mean, I saw these paintings. They were big. They were expressive. I hadn't seen anything like that before. And it gave me a new outlook. I knew art from, you know, like that was done on tables, you know.
Right. And Dorothy Dunn stuff too.
Yeah, like a cup of water, and then you painted, you know, flat, like this is how people did. You know, somebody dipping a big broad brush stroke and
yeah. And the subject matters are a variety as well.
Oh, you know what was in that show was Fritz Sholder's Buffalo Dancer eating an ice cream cone.
Oh, I know exactly. That's a cover
and
of that
Delmar
book,
Boney's
right?
painting of the, like, their array of Indians, and there's like these lipstick and then ice cream cones and Indians, and they have these bubbles with a thing above it that has hearts. I forget what's in that. It's just a great painting. And then there was also the other guy. His name is he did Mom A, Mom B, Mom C, and his name is I'll think of him if I can come back to it. Sometimes he's a little more obscure. But Cannon was in there, and it was Indian with a beer can.
Oh, wow.
So you have to imagine these are all the key, like this
paintings too.
Like, these are all the paintings that are now in books.
Yeah, or on covers of books, actually.
Yeah.
Both those are actually.
And this was all championed at the time by, these key people like Elaine Horowitz was representing everybody. There was a supposed to be Indian, and he wasn't an Indian, Shamaki Highwater kind of guy who had interviewed my dad and included my father's work in a couple of books. And so, good or bad, whether Indian or not Indian, he helped promote and did a couple of books on contemporary art. There were a lot of people who were collecting the work. And so I just wanted to be one of those artists. Now, I don't, know where I don't, the hard part about doing what I do is I don't get to decide, do I really fit into this narrative? I mean, I do what I do. I haven't had a job since I was 19. I live in 2 places. I teach, I make jewelry. I've done
you're
sculpture.
A busy boy.
Mean, I do stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And so I have
sounds
to
like a job to me, actually, Tony.
Yeah, it's a job.
A full-time job, it sounds like. You just don't have a job that you get a paycheck on a regular basis. It comes in big spurts.
Yeah. Like I see my account dwindling down, or I'm to call and say, "Hey, Tony, your check didn't clear." I'm like, oh, shit. So then I have to figure out, hustle. Like, okay, what am I gonna do? I got to go paint something and run it by my gallery. And I've always had really good galleries that have taken care of me.
Yeah.
So I don't have to struggle as hard as I did in the beginning.
Well, when you saw that show, did you immediately change styles? Did you go?
No, I mean, I was still learning.
Yeah, you were still young.
I just knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, so you get your degree in Santa Fe, IA, and then you ended up in Berkeley too, right? Was that later on?
No, there's a really long
and France and Italy
academic
right?
career.
Yeah,
it was a real
both.
career.
And
6
Chicago
years.
Art Institute too, right?
Yeah,
all those places.
So I went from the Institute of American Indian Arts to the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, because I wanted to study on the East Coast and applied to RISD. I got accepted there, but Maryland Institute gave me a full scholarship. Can you believe this? This still it drives me crazy. I think my tuition was $3,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter went to school there for 2 years recently. Same school. I think it was 70, and she was on scholarship. I mean, 70 grand, but she got maybe 20 off.
Right.
So it's still like 50 grand, right?
Yeah.
And the deal I make with my kids is they don't have to have a college debt, or what do you call it? Student loans, right? That was my deal with them. Is so they would be scot-free. They could study. They get to pick where they want to go to school, and then they don't have to, pay back the government or whoever they borrow the money for school. But so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of struggle to like right now I've got 2 kids in college.
So
that's a big, tall order.
That is a tall order.
If you are thinking about getting a Tony Abeyta painting sometime in the near future, you're building a new edition. Now's the time. I got 2 kids in college in Europe too.
He's painting big at the moment.
Yeah,
really big.
Yeah.
So you go to Maryland, and then
let's go back to school.
Yeah. And where else?
So I go to Maryland Institute College of Art, and I had an opportunity to study abroad. I can go to the south of France, and here's the first opportunity to escape being a painter. I didn't want to be a painter. I'm going to be a sculptor. So they've got these quarries, and I go work in the quarries in stone, and I'm sculpting travertine and marble, and it was great. It was fun.
Are those pieces
Drinking
out there?
wine,
Are those pieces
crazy.
out there?
Yeah, I couldn't afford to ship them back. They're out there.
They're all in Italy?
No, they're actually south of France.
Oh.
Yeah, there's probably 3 sculptures down there. I talked to somebody about a decade ago, and they said, "Oh, Tony, they're still there. They're like funny. All patinized black, and with."
Are they still at the quarry?
I think they're in the quarry. They're in the quarry there.
Oh, that's funny.
And so I don't remember if they were good or bad, but I will say that that experience of moving to Europe really changed the art, because then I studied sculpture. Then I quit sculpture and painting and started drawing, which I still retain. Black and white drawing is part of my...
And you've been doing a lot of that lately, right?
Yeah.
Some big ones. They're fantastic, actually. I really like
big
those.
and intricate, and I like.
Yeah, I like those a lot.
The way they happen. I don't plot or plan. They just, they got a lot of animals and foliage and plant life. And so, the black and white drawings came out of a fall, session where I didn't want to paint. I didn't want to sculpt. And I just started drawing. Then I went from there to Florence. So I went to Florence, Italy, and then I studied in Florence, Italy. And then I picked up painting again. And I've been doing it ever since.
Why painting again? Do you know why?
I think because I was in Florence and there was a lot of it was great because there was like these figurative painters and the narrative was really intriguing to me. The way they were describing the story, right? Mm-hmm. The way you tell the story is through painting. So you had Pantormo and you had of course, Da Vinci and Michelangelo, and everybody's telling these stories through, hand motions, through facial expressions, through really the silent conversation, which is all done through, gestures. And you have music that's being described with a lute and with flutes and all of these things. And it's all painted, right? And so devotion,
so it turned your screw somehow. Something that said, okay, back to this.
Yeah, I thought maybe it would be responsible of me as an art student to pick up a brush again if I'm going to be a painting major. Mm-hmm. So I did printmaking. So I was studying printmaking as well. And then I got back to the States and I actually had to start figuring out what I'm going to do. I had to do
How old were you at this time?
21, 22.
Oh, yeah. You were young. Yeah.
And I fell in love and I got married really early. I mean, I had kids when I was 24, my son when I was 24, and I was married, driving a minivan. I dressed like Michael J. Fox. I look like this total yuppie weird kid. I look back on that and I'm just like, I don't know. It was an interesting period of my life, but I did it all way too young.
Yeah, this was 80s time frame.
It was totally 80s. That's why I said the Michael J. Fox thing. So if anyone knows who he is, they can say, oh yeah, he dressed really conservative, kind of preppy.
Yeah, I've never seen you dress like that before.
Nah, I had these stupid round glasses and stuff too.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and hair.
We got any photos of that? I'd love to see that.
No, I burned them all.
Oh, very good. Smart move.
They don't exist anymore.
So you have the kids.
So I have my son, and my daughter came along
things,
later.
Right? That changed the pattern, right? You had to start making money.
I had to start making money.
Yeah.
And I had an art dealer in Chicago who at the time had given me a couple of shows out there, and I was just selling stuff hand over fist. I got back from Europe, and I had some kind of prowess in making images and things. And so
were these Navajo based at that time?
Yeah, the earlier work of which I refer to as my traditional period was really based in the deity series. They were generally very colorful and a lot of texture. I started mixing in paint and with sand with the paint. So they were sort of contemporary versions of sand paintings, but they were, permanent and they were sort of embedded with thick textures. Layers.
Helen Hardin-esque at all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all that.
And surprisingly, I knew who Helen was, but Helen was never a major influence on my work very directly. Naminga, Dan, of course, because Dan was dealing with the ritual parts of Hopi work. And so I was looking at the way he was tackling what defines our culture, right? What defines, indigenous... and in my case, Navajo. But how does that define who we are as a people? And really, most of it is in our belief systems, right? So we have an idea that there's spiritual investments in all things, and whether that's a place, water, whether that's in plants and medicine, and all of these things have a spiritual investment in them. So describing those things, and then ancestral figures. So,
and how long did you do the sand painting inspired pieces?
I don't think I've done one I think I added one to my show about a year ago or 2 years ago.
So you occasionally still might use that media?
Almost, I mean, it's pretty rare actually. There's just so many other things I want to tackle right now.
Yeah.
With The landscapes have become a large part of what I'm working on now, but there's a lot of range. I mean, it's different all the time. There could be still lifes. There could be complete abstractions, birds. Yeah.
And so you started in your 20s, really your career, mid-20s.
I started too early.
Why you say that?
Well, no. It's not that I started too early. I really loved being an artist from the beginning. It was insane how much I was working. I was like a total drug addict. I would be in the studio working at 11 a.m. And I would cut out at like 12. And I'd be so exhausted I couldn't even...
12 p.m.?
Yeah. My ex-wife would come pick me up at the studio and drive me home because I could barely
Was it for the art, or was it the art and what you got from it, which was the money?
No, you know what? The money stuff came later.
Yeah.
The very beginning, the very, origins of how I worked as an artist was just like pure passion.
Yeah.
Real excitement. Handling a brush and experimenting. I don't experiment enough. I have to remind myself that. But
and why is that?
Would do
why
anything
do you say that you don't experiment enough?
Well, because I sort of established like a way of working. I know I know how to handle a brush.
Yeah.
I can, I know which brush I'm going to use.
And it's risky to do the other.
Well, I don't need to do it as much as I did in my earlier career because I didn't know how to handle brushes. So I would use anything, rags.
Yeah.
I would use sticks. I would use, and there's some things that I've had to like steer away from because it's just like I would paint with patinas and stuff. So, and it's really toxic. And so toxicity would make a big, impact on the work. So I ease off of the big, large scale drippy paintings with turpentine, but
unless you wear
I don't do
mask
it, I mean, I try to wear
And where
gloves
do you paint,
now.
by the way? Where are most of your work done? Is it
Santa Fe?
Yeah, it is?
Yeah.
Because you also go to California some, right?
Santa Fe, I paint the small work.
Got it.
And I'll start stuff there and then ship it back and finish it in Santa Fe.
Yeah. So you're basically working 12 hours a day, and you do that for how long?
In the beginning, I did it all the time. I was in the studio probably every day. And
for years?
And then we get to I started selling work. So
to the guy in Chicago? Hustling. This was the guy in Chicago selling it?
2 or 3 people were buying work.
Yeah, who else?
And the first guy, James Aumel, who was a early trader in Santa Fe, and was a good friend of my sister, and he was buying work from Earl Biss and from Presley LaFountain and a lot of contemporary artists. And he would say, "Bring some stuff in, Tony." And so I was selling him all these prints and small paintings and stuff, and he bought a lot of work, and that was really great. It shows you can help like an artist in the very beginning, just like by supporting them, and you don't have to love everything they're doing. You just are giving them support.
Yeah, and so, positive reinforcement too.
I do it. I'll buy young, upcoming artists because I think it's important. Someone has to do it, and so I want to be one of them. And I have a huge collection of art by all kinds of people, and mainly friends. People.
I'm going to send all these people that contact me that are just starting to you.
Well, it's our responsibility. It's not mine. So if you're sending them to me,
because I've already bought a piece.
Yeah, you might not like them. And we both have the same taste, so maybe
we do. I've always said that you have the most.
If you like them, send them to me because I'll probably buy them.
I'll show you one actually when we get it done. It's just like that. He just graduated. He's fantastic.
Yeah,
Josh Gibson. I'll give him a shout out.
Oh, cool, great, Josh Gibson.
Yeah,
write that name down.
Yeah, no, you should.
You never know. If we're both talking about him here.
I know.
I don't know what you do.
And he lives in Oakland. He just graduated from CAA.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Oaktown. Yeah, he's in my hood.
Yeah, I'll hook you up. You can get a piece while it's still cheap.
Okay.
It won't be forever.
Yeah. There's a lot of good people out there.
So you make a living as an artist now. Your things are starting to roll for you at that point. I'm still going back because I want to see this whole how you develop to where I've known you probably 25 or 30 years.
Long time. Yeah.
At least 25. And for me, you've always been somebody who is a known entity as far as I was concerned, like a top tier artist. And so
that's a funny thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes people will tell me, "Oh, you're famous."
Yeah, I don't care.
But
about
I also
fame.
run across a lot of I'm trying to explain what I do to people. And like, who the fuck are you? They just don't know what I do.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I do this. They're like rain coming down like this, and a river moving towards you, and boom, 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 kind of like chamisa. What's chamisa? Well, it's kind of like sagebrush. What's sagebrush? And I'm like, Google me. Right? So, you know, of course, fame's always relative in small circles of people.
Yes.
I want people to know what I do, because then I don't have to ever explain it. They could say, oh, yeah, I see what you do.
Now, at some point, you did a big switcheroo in the last 8-9 years when you started making jewelry. Tell me a little bit about that, because it's really interesting and it's fantastic stuff.
All right, so we go back to my dad, right?
Yeah.
So my dad was a jeweler, and then all of my relatives back on the reservation are jewelers and have been their whole lives. They have a whole like industry of making really great, you know, silver work, stamp work, and setting stones. And so I explain the jewelry making story as follows. I used to go running with a bunch of my friends who were all hotshot jewelers today. And so we had this running circle, and I'm running with this guy named Kenneth Johnson and Cody Sanderson and a few other people. And we're jogging and I'm talking to Cody, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I think I want to make some jewelry. And he goes, come on by the shop. I'll show you how to like pound out a piece of silver. You know, I'll show you how to bend. Like we could do it like today if you want. And I'm like, not today. And I'll come by this week. And so I actually go by Cody's shop, but he's not there yet. He's, you know, he's always running behind schedule, right, Cody? Because he's just got a big life. He's got kids and things. And at the time, one of our mutual friends, who is Michael Roanhorse, shows up, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna start making jewelry. And he's like, oh, I like your paintings. Yeah, I'm Michael Roanhorse. I'm a jeweler. I make these sculptural bracelets and stuff. And he's like, what are you going to make? And I'm like, well, I drew these. Let me show you. I showed him some pictures of stuff I did. And he's like, well, you should sandcast those. Because I could show you how to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to I had Cody help me. He's like, Cody don't know how to sandcast. I'll help you do it. So, right. And so I go over to his studio and he says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to carve this and do this. And I'm like, nah, that's not going to work for me. I don't work like that. So I devised this idea because, you know, I did these paintings that had sand texture on them. And so I'm using these like palette knives and stuff to sculpt and create surface texture on the paintings. So I just get this idea, a pair of scissors, cut, reassemble it, you know, put it all together, and I take it to Mike. I said, could I cast this?
A three-dimensional piece.
Three-dimensional piece. And he goes, well, I don't know. I don't see why. Let's spray some WD-40 on there, and let's get this sand on there, and then we pull and we, you know, melt the silver down, pour it in, open it up. Bam! This works. I'm like, okay. I said, did anybody make jewelry like this? No, you're the first one who's cutting stuff up like that. You know, that textural stuff. You know, most people do it the old school way. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. So I started making sand casts. And of course, like people like Cody would show me how to anneal stuff. Cody never did jewelry or anything for me. He just showed me like, this is how you do it. Here, come here. Not like this. You don't tap like that. Bam, 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 you know, and he showed me, and he's like, this is how you do it, right? And he was really heavy-handed, and he just could handle his tools, and he had everything right there. He showed me no fear, right? Because he just would.
He has no fear. He's like a surgeon with a knife.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I once broke my arm, and I'm like, I want to take this cast off. Could you help me cut it? Yeah, come on over to the studio. He's like, okay. Just be like, there you go, man. See you later. And I'm looking like we just cut this cast off, right? You know?
Yeah, I've done a few of those.
So he has just this way of approach of doing stuff. So that's what you learn from people. You learn from people's ability. Like Mike Roanhorse, I would see like the way he just sculpts and creates, you know, sculpture with jewelry with a modernist approach and edge and stuff. And then I brought my own, you know, whatever it was. But I was really comfortable working with, you know, metal and stone. And I went and bought a lapidary wheel, and I'm doing all of this stuff. But there were limitations to a guy who just picks up jewelry, right? So I was doing like really complex things. And so there were certain things like, I want to make a necklace with hinges. So I get people to help me. Can you help me, show me how to do this? Like, here, you'll just mess it up here.
Right.
And so I would try doing bezels and I would like screw it all up. Right. Yeah. So I had just got someone to make my bezels. And the way we're going with this is that I had people helping me. And I think the problem with that is, believe it or not, most jewelers in this industry have help. They've got people who help them. But you can't really, to a certain extent, you got to have some background in making, all of it your own self. If you're a traditional silversmith, you're generally saying, I do this all by myself. Everyone's like, I'm melting my coins, down and pounding it into an ingot. And then I'm making my own stamps. And so there's prowess that goes with that. And that's just like, I don't have that ability.
You come from a different background. So you come from art where it's very typical to have people help. You have attendants, you have assistants that do things. I mean, you don't in your own paintings, but it's not something that's considered to be bad. It's considered to be part of the development.
And I think the thing is like, and I love making jewelry, but it was also like having a drug addiction because people would call me out of the blue and say, hey man, I got some Bisbee turquoise. It's like, really, where are you? And they're like, I'm down in Albuquerque. And it's like, where? And it's like, I'll just meet you in the parking lot of Dunkin' Donuts, like right on the, okay, I'll meet you there. And so I'd be there in their truck. I'll take this one, little baggies, putting out there. It's a cash deal right there. People would be looking and saying, I know what's up with those guys. They're dealing drugs and stuff right there. And it wasn't much difference in that. I was buying turquoise, high-end stuff.
Yeah. I
was buying really great Bisbee.
Well, that's what your jewelry always does, too. It has great stones on it.
And so I learned this from everybody, right? Like, so there's people like Daryl Dean Begay who will say, this is this stone, this is what this is, or Olin. And people would show me, like, this is the best top grade Bisbee that you can get. You need enough red in there. Mm-hmm. This is better than lavender pit. You want it deep. You want it almost levels of transparency into it. And Lone Mountain, the deepest, darkest, tightest matrix. Matrix can be just as important as the pretty blue.
Well, you bought that great number 8 bracelet that was had the.
That thing is a gorgeous stone. That was a so I would find all this great stuff, but we go back to, it feels like it's this drug addiction. I'm buying all this stuff. I'm buying coral. I'm not getting any painting done, right? So I gave up painting for like 2 years.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
To complicate it, I think the industry itself, if you're some Johnny-come-lately jeweler that shows up on, you're like, hey, what's this guy? He's doing this show. And all these people are and he's charging bank for it, like, because this jewelry's never been cheap. And they're like, can you believe Tony got $5,000 for that bracelet? So, like all
some egos,
my comrades and the egos, And I mean, these are really good jewelers. Right. Like, most people are like frustrated, like, hey man, we really, I learned this stamping from my uncle who learned it from his father. Like, we've been doing this and we've been doing that. And like, this lapidary stuff takes, time. And, we go out and find, the turquoise or something. Right.
I don't buy it in
and I'm like, man, I'll
parking lot.
I'll buy it in a parking lot. I don't care. Just bring it over. And so it was.
You got pushed back.
Some people got really frustrated. It even worked against me because then they would be like, "Well, Tony doesn't even make you." One of the comments was like, once it was like, "Well, Tony sits by the pool and draws on a napkin and then makes a phone call. Somebody picks it up and they bring it over and he sits with the Pauline cloth and then jumps into the pool." And so it was really fun. It was really a fun thing to kind of giggle at, but it was frustrating for people. I think it was part of, the dynamics of how I did it was very Tony, right? It was, I just like, I would just kill it. Like I had really great resources for people teaching me stuff. I was learning really quick. I was really hungry. I go, excuse the expression, but like balls deep. I really loved doing
you were
jewelry.
Into it. Yeah, you were excited creatively.
Yeah, so it wasn't because I wasn't doing the work. It was that I was extremely like over passionate and zealous about all of it.
Yeah.
And I came up I'll pick up a piece of, jewelry that I designed in the first group of stuff, and I'll look and I'm like, this is really good by design standards. So, I mean, I'm learning from the best. I'm learning quick.
Yeah. You came out of the gates. I can tell you as a dealer, you came out of the gates like blazing. I mean, I had people like, oh, have you seen this Abeyta stuff? Can you get the jewelry? Can you get the jewelry? I mean, it was like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
And here's one for 10,000. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know. And that's what's frustrating, because it's like I've been doing jewelry for 2 years, right?
Right.
And people are like, you can't do that. You have to like, stagger it, right?
Yeah, but you did it. and
I think
it's held its value too.
Yeah, it holds its value. I mean, I look for certain things and I'll buy them back. I bought a couple things back for myself, but those early pieces that were fun, I was, doing these rings with little small beads, and then I would put a piece of transparent quartz over it so you could shake it and they'd move around, and you could see a little turquoise bead, a little coral, and a white bead, and they'd move around. And I was doing sculptural bracelets, kinetic things, and you moved your wrist and they would change from like silver, and then you flipped it this way, and then it would be stones, corals on the underbelly of it. There were necklaces that were hinged. There were
plus just beautiful sculpture stuff too.
Yeah, and so that was the other part. So the other later work I was doing, I was getting frustrated with people saying it's too big. It can't fit.
Not functional.
It's like, who's going to wear something that big? And I'm like, who said anything about wearing it? I got to a place that I just wanted to do sculpture.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, recently I've just started to work on like metal sculptures, like small, that feel like I'm dealing with them as jewelry, and influenced by people like Harry Bertoya.
Yeah, I love his stuff.
Who I do too. I've always loved Harry's work.
Make it sound, little music.
Yeah, it's an ambient work. And creating work that isn't supposed to be jewelry, but it can be very delicate and intimate. Like, it feels like jewelry, but it could also be tabletop little sculpture, right?
Finding a different lane. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody's really doing that kind of stuff so much either, I don't think.
No, and so
will you have that at this next August?
I'm walking really with it right now. I started a couple of things. I really enjoy it. I love the process, because it feels like I'm making jewelry again.
Yeah.
And yet I don't have to compete with anybody, because it's not part of that discourse. It's its own thing.
You going to put the stones in it too? Use the stones?
I could do anything I want.
Yeah,
like, I'm giving myself permission to just let it.
To be creative.
It'll actually be like, wood constructions with metal.
I like this. This all sounds
maybe
really
it could be
good.
silver, but I've been working on them in brass.
I like this.
So brass.
I want to see this
patentize
stuff.
them and stuff. They're small. They're influenced by Calder. Margaret DePata, who's a jeweler that's almost like got the same problem, right? And there's a number of Ed Weiner. That
Is any of this stuff out yet? Have you made any of this stuff?
No, I want to do a show of it. So I'm working on. I'm still a painter. I'm working on my next show, which is going to be Angry Planet series. These are works that are based on global climate change, taking my landscapes, which are really, pretty, and then they got raining clouds and stuff, and just adding a little bit more tumultuous content to them. So they're volcanoes, they're forest fires, they're comets, there's tornadoes. But like tornadoes in places that you wouldn't expect. So like, it could be a Santa Fe landscape with a tornado, right?
I saw one over there once.
Yeah, it was a little one. It came out really, I was proud of that. So there's all this work to be done. I'm getting older and more seasoned, and I still want to travel a lot. And I've got kids in college. So I feel like I'm juggling and spinning plates at the same time. But I love what I do. I feel really fortunate, super grateful that I haven't had to have a job.
You keep saying that, but I think you work hard. I always see you working.
What I mean is like that I have to show up. Well, I do.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
You've got deadlines all the time, major deadlines.
Well, like the past week has been crazy. I wanted to just stay home.
You weren't you at the Autry? Didn't you just come from the Autry?
I flew into LA for one night for the Autry's open.
How was that?
Right? So I went. Oh, it was great. I was there. There are all these really hot shot painters from all over the country.
Yeah.
And
a bunch of my artists are there.
Really good. I know that. You know who they are. They're really superstars. So like I'm a little dwarfed by some of these people, like Jeremy Lipking and
they feel the same way about you. I guarantee
Logan's killing it with these like
John Moyers.
Everybody's there.
Yeah.
And so just recently they started letting more Native American artists in, which is good.
Tammy's there, right?
I'm super proud of the Autry because they've got a lot more invitations to Native American participants, which is just important. It's epic.
Yeah,
like,
of course it is.
We need, like, a lot of museums have been gatekeeping and saying, well, I don't know about the Indian stuff, but we can have Anglo painters, period Anglo painters, with depictions of Indians in the museum.
Right.
But I don't know about the Indian stuff. It's kind of folkloric or weird, or culturally we don't know how to deal with it.
Do you think of yourself as an Indian painter or native painter?
I always define myself as that.
Do you?
I'm not one of those guys that says...
Not Fritz?
Fritz and a number of people have stated that first I'm an artist, and then who happens to be Indian now. I'm a Native American artist.
Yeah, that's cool.
And only because I think it's more special. I mean, the reality is that we are American Indians and we're artists. We always have been.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had a great eye of looking at things, the design. And
I want to talk to you about your eye, because you have, so one of the things I've told people repetitively, I all the time, is Tony Abeyta has the best eye. He's the guy who's got the best eye. He'll come into my gallery, he'll come into my booth, wherever I am. He'll pick out the best 3 things I like every time. So
that's because you got a good eye.
So I've got an eye, but it's interesting how you can do that. So you have a real interest in other things. It's not just, you have a really good knowledge of early historic Native American material in a variety of areas, Hispanic material. And so how does that all play into your life? Because you like that stuff. You buy and sell when you can. You're more of a collector, I think, really. But
I'm a collector, but I don't believe in hoarding. I'm not a collector that stacks stuff up. I don't want shelves full of things. So I recognize things, and I'll buy them, and then I live with them, and then I can part and move forward and do something different. So it doesn't stick. There's some things that are sentimental that I can't.
Like your dad's paintings.
My dad's paintings, a good example. Right. Or, I collect furniture by a guy named Sam Malouf, who was
I know Sam Malouf is.
Yeah. So
and why was that special? Did you know Sam?
Sam was a dear friend. He was almost a father to me.
Oh, wow.
He was a spiritual mentor, creative mentor. And
I didn't know that.
I met Sam years back, and I did a trade for him for a rocking chair for some paintings, and it took like 6 paintings later.
Yeah,
I got my rocking chair in a big box. It was delivered, and so I started, buying his work, and his business got a little bit better. I'd start getting something new, and so I've got a pretty good collection of. And in the beginning, so I started off with Spanish colonial New Mexican material. I bought a lot of WPA.
You had some great stuff. I remember.
Really great stuff. And then I came to this conclusion that I didn't want to do that. And it was 3 phone calls, sold it all. I can bat. So it must have been good, right? I sold it all, and I've never missed it. I love it. I know I can talk for hours about dovetailing. I can talk about furniture makers. I could tell where it came from. I can talk to you about whether it was territorial, whether it was colonial, whether it was from 1850 or 1890, square nails, mortise and tenon.
All about the Retablo guys, too.
I can look at it and tell you that, that little bridge on the nose is Raphael. And so how do I know all of these things? I learned from other collectors, right? So...
And dealers, right?
And dealers too. Yeah. Dealers will tell me. And early on, when I wasn't buying it, and I always made it clear that I was learning, dealers would be like, "I'll tell you what that is, Tony. Like, this is really interesting because you might want to know this about this pottery. This low shoulders is earlier, higher shoulders are much later. This dark red band around the bottom of it means it's an early thing. This little pookie here is." And then I started learning, what pueblos, this is Zia, this is, Acamita. I can know the difference between Acamita and Acoma or Laguna. So, Yeah, just as and because I'm an artist, I look at it from the creator's perspective.
Right, how it's made.
How it's made.
Yeah. It gives you an advantage, I think, too.
Yeah. The restraint sometimes when people don't over-decorate something and they leave enough space and balance.
I think you can also tell when it isn't the artist's hand. You see there's restoration or problems. Maybe gives you an advantage.
It's getting hard to spot these days, though, because
they're good.
There's artistry and restoration, too. People can take something and you're like, show me where that crack is. And I'm like...
So you had a store at one time, right? That you
I did.
That was in Taos,
I started with
right?
a gallery in Taos because I was trapped in Taos. I was there for about 5 years, maybe a decade, I think. It was a long time. And so I opened up my own gallery, my own work, and then I started including other things like folk art and New Mexican furniture. I dealt a lot in WPA and New Mexican tin work and all of that. And so because that was such a chapter.
And the early other stuff too. You had paintings like Taos founders and Santa Fe artists, right?
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Like the moderns.
You're very knowledgeable in that field too.
I know a lot. I should have probably been an art dealer. So that was the other thing I tried to like bail on painting. I said, I don't want to be a painter anymore. I want to be an art dealer.
I remember
all
that.
These other people, Mark Sublette and all these other guys are art dealers. I want to be like that.
We all want to be painters. That's what we don't tell you.
Then I know all of the, the inside skinny on everything. And I'm like, man, no, I'm not going to do this. Yeah. This is too, it's just too crazy of a lifestyle, But buying people's heirlooms and stuff like that, I just couldn't do it. Like people, I just been in my family for 100 years. And I'm like,
it's hard to do sometimes.
I'll give you $1,500 for it. I can't do that. Like I've done it. I've done it. And it never really felt like it was something I wanted to continue doing. And I moved, and as a result, I had this epiphany, and I said, I've done this long enough. And I sold everything.
I remember when you did that.
It was cool.
Like,
it was
why didn't you call me on some of those things?
There's really key specific people. Like you call, there's the, people in the trade know if you're going to sell something.
Yeah.
Like, New Mexican furniture, who I called, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I knew who he called. Yeah. And so and it was easy because a lot of that stuff wasn't, if it was in the house, right? It wasn't like it was, second rate. It was pretty good.
Right.
So it was always
and you were ready. You were ready to let it go.
I got rid of it and I never missed any of it. If I ever, the regrets I've ever had, I sold Marty Streve a pair of Hopi inlay earrings that I bought from Larry Frank that were just great. And I sold those, and and if I found them, I'd buy them back, right? I sold a small pictorial rug that I bought from Ray Trotter, and I wish I had that back. And it doesn't matter because there's other things.
Yeah, there's other material.
Yeah, and I collect all contemporary work now. So
when you say contemporary, you mean like contemporary painters, jewelers?
I'm collecting right now contemporary American Indian artists. So I've been putting together a collection of people who were basically 20th century and really starting at 1975, where everybody quit. All the old school people say, well, I don't buy stuff after 1950. I only buy, Loloma was the last guy that I buy in terms of jewelry, and Shoulder's about as, that's the end of the trail. I don't buy anything. I pick up from there.
From 75 up?
Yeah, really starting in the 80s. So I started buying everything that was included in that show that I talked about.
Yeah, well, those are all, great.
I collect Harry Fonseca.
That's fantastic.
TC Cannon.
He's one of my favorite.
And there's Emmy Whitehorse and Jean Quick to See and Naminga and but there's other
Shanto Begay?
Those guys are great. I have a Shanto.
Yeah.
But more than even that, there's a lot of new people. Chanupa Luger, Nicholas Galanin, my friend Preston Singletary, Diego Romero, Carol Romero, Mateo. There's all of these other key people who are doing amazing work, and I know it, and I don't doubt myself on all of it. I'm not collecting for investment, but I also curate. So part of that is putting together a curatorial array of contemporary people that I think that are the key protagonists of the here and the now.
Yeah, kind of like Billy Shank's done a little bit of that with in his own world.
Yeah, so the historic work is great and beautiful, but it also is limited by yesteryear, right? Of the memories of what once was. And I think there's some people right now that are doing work that is pertinent to what we're doing in the here and the now.
Have you collected any of your own stuff?
I have a few, but with me, I always think, I could make another one, so maybe I'll sell this so that I can go visit my kids in Europe for a week or go to Iceland. Like I took the whole family to Iceland, right?
How was that?
Oh, it was great,
I heard it's fantastic.
It's really expensive, right?
Yeah.
So it was a fortune. And although I really enjoyed it, it set me back, I think. A couple of paintings.
All right. What else? Anything else you want to share with our
This is a good
listeners?
life. Like the people is really what it's all about. So I've been doing this so long. I've cultivated just amazing personalities and my fellow artists, my dealer friends, you know. So I have as many like dealer friends that deal in different things, whether it's potteries or textiles, Spanish colonial, New Mexican stuff, jewelry, whatever it is. I kind of am a little different in that I love to see all of it. Like Mimbres pots, I love looking at them. I can't own them, I can't touch them, but I will look at the iconography and think, my goodness, look at that.
I know, they're beautiful. And
then in terms of the, my native artist community, damn, I mean, superstars. They're all like, they're all represented. They're all really. And if they're not in the big great museums, they will be, because there's this new upcoming group of young painters that are just doing, and young artists all together, that are doing amazing work, and I'm just watching it all. I get to bear witness to it. So this is a good life.
Do you feel because now you're like you've won a what? You won like a award from New Mexico for excellence.
There's a couple of those.
I mean, but
Native Treasure Award.
That's what I'm talking about. So now you're kind of at the mature phase of your life and career. I mean, people look at you as, oh, that's Tony Abeyta. Does that feel odd to be, okay, I'm that guy now?
I don't know if I'm that guy.
You are that guy, though.
So, well,
you are.
I mean, it's about perception. I mean, I'm a knucklehead too. Like I'm pretty irresponsible, and people like, I can't believe that the way you do all this stuff, and I'm like, it works.
Yeah.
There's somebody was asking me, well, do you have somebody who, preps all this stuff and gets it all ready for you and puts your, does your travel arrangements and everything for you? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? The perception of who you are and what you really are.
I'm lucky if I get somebody to take out the trash, or I sit around and wait for house guests so that when I leave, they see the dishes in the sink and they'll do them because they feel like, wow.
Because your sisters aren't around.
So yeah, I hate doing dishes.
Yeah, me too. We're the same. We're simpatico on that one. I don't like it.
Right?
Oh, I hate it. I really hate it.
But that all said, it's about the art. It's about the people. And it's about growing and developing, and I do my best.
Yeah, you've done a great job.
I don't get to decide what my wake is. I don't know. Either people think what I do is good or is meaningful. Or I want it to be a contribution. I don't want it to be just. It's not about making money. I make money. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
That isn't. I can make money in other ways too.
Yeah.
But I don't.
You can, and I know that's true. Yeah, you could buy and sell.
Yeah.
Guarantee you would be a world-class dealer at any point in time if you wanted to.
If I wanted to do that.
If you wanted to do it.
If I could deal with buying people's heirlooms.
You could. You just have to do it the right way. You know what you do? When I've had people come in and I say, are you sure you want to sell this? Because this seems really important to you. And they usually say, almost invariably, they say, yeah, I have to. So, and then you have a responsibility to try to pay them the most you can so they get the most out of their heirlooms.
Sure.
So that's how I deal with that.
I have friends and I've given them like a piece of artwork or something. And I say, and you can sell this. I give them permission.
That's nice.
They say, oh no, I would never sell it. I'm like, don't say that.
Yeah,
if you ever want to sell it, like if you like they're going to repo your car or something,
stuff happens.
Go sell that.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't, I'm not giving this to you because I want you to like, you know, be attached to it in a, you know, in some way that's unhealthy.
That's right. Well, Maria gave all her grandkids pottery, and she said, this is for you when you need to sell it.
Yeah, right.
Right. If you need a roof or something, this is what this is for. Yeah. And they have. They've brought them to me, and I've sold them, and they've told me those stories. So nice. I think that's a really wonderful way to do it. Yeah. This is, enjoy it, love it, but it's yours. You get to do with it what you want.
Yeah. And I think I'll finish with this, is that with all of this, with art, because this is really, I think, what these podcasts are about.
They are.
Is that we don't really own any of this.
No, we don't.
Dealers understand that the most, that this really isn't ours. Art has its own life of its own. And anyone in this industry knows that things come to you. Like they just like happen. Like you'll be in the most obscure place. You can be in, you know, Bogota, you know, and you run across. And it's like, wow, now cheese blank, you know. But there's these things that just happen to fall into your consciousness and into your lap, and they come to you and they look for placement. They look for you to find where they're supposed to go next. And we get to live with them. Other people have owned them before. They go through different hands. They have a life of their own.
That's right.
We're arrogant to think that this is all ours. Yeah. This is my collection.
Right.
This is my Perry Shorty bracelet. Right. This is, you know,
my Michael Cabote bracelet.
Your Michael Cabote bracelet. You know what? These aren't ours.
But this one is mine.
I actually
it's not
bought
for sale.
This from another. This came from another person, you know, that owned it before me.
It's true.
And some, you know, my son will own this, or somebody else will.
No, it is true.
So we get to like put aside the us, you know, the me, the ego that goes with whatever it is, painting, and it becomes part of human, you know, commerce and what we appreciate.
And connectivity.
Yeah. Connects us to all these things.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I feel. All right, Tony Abeyta.
That's
fantastic. Yeah. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Great. Fantastic.
All right, let's go find out how much the Perry Shorty is then.
Oh, no. I want to find out about the Kenneth Begay buckle you got in there.
Oh, no, I got to keep that.
The one I get the Indian discount on, right?
Yeah.
Navajo discount.
Oh, yeah, that's what he asked.
Use Navajo.
So yeah, he said for a Navajo discount. I'm going to use that in my next Charles Bloom murder mystery. Yeah. And Charles is going to giggle and say no. Tony Abeyta, fantastic artist. Highly recommend anyone who isn't familiar with his artwork or his jewelry and soon to be his sculpture to go check it out, because it's fantastic. I've been a fan for 25 years, man. 25 years. One of these days you might even show with me. You never know.
Yeah, that means I have to start painting. And so let's...
we'll talk about sculpture.
Yeah.
Tony Abeyta, thank you. Man Gallery, located for over 26 years in Tucson, Arizona, specializing in antique Native American art, early Western art, including the famed Maynard Dixon, as well as modern art. You can find everything online at medicinemangallery.com. There's over 6,000 objects to select from. Also, the Charles Bloom Murder Mystery Series, written by yours truly, me, Mark Sublette. There's 6 books in this series, and they follow the protagonist Charles Bloom through all the intrigue of the art world set in Santa Fe and the Navajo Nation. These can be found on Audible, ebooks, Amazon, and of course, the gallery at medicinemangallery.com.